We should commence this module by studying about the price discrimination. Pricing decisions tend to be the most imperative decisions made by any firm in any category of market arrangement. The price is affected by the competitive structure of a market because the firm is an essential part of the market in which it operates. Firms regularly fragment customers according to price sensitivity, elasticity in an array to price discriminate and increase profits. In some settings, consumer heterogeneity can be directly observed and a firm can base its pricing upon contractable consumer characteristics. In other settings, heterogeneity is not openly observable but can be obliquely elicited by offering catalogues of products and prices and allowing customers to self-select. In both cases, the firm seeks to price its merchandise as a function of each consumer's underlying demand elasticity, extracting additional surplus and escalating sales to elastic customers in the process. When the firm is a monopolist with market power, the underlying theory of price discrimination is well understood. On the other extreme, when markets are perfectly competitive and firms have neither short-run nor long-run market power, the law of one price applies and price discrimination cannot exist. This module explores the price discrimination in the imperfectly competitive market structures, which is the practice of charging a dissimilar price for the same good or service. After studying this module, you would be able to know the concept of price discrimination, know the assumptions required for price discrimination, know the forms of price discrimination, understand the graphical method for price discrimination, understand the effects of price discrimination. Let us now discuss the concept of price discrimination. The definition of price discrimination says, a firm discriminates price when the ratio of prices is different from the ratio of marginal cost for same two goods offered by a similar firm. Such a definition certainly requires that one is cautious in calculating marginal cost to include all significant shadow cost. This is predominantly true where costly capacity and aggregate demand uncertainty play vital roles. Price discrimination is very now and then defined as the practice of a firm selling a homogeneous commodity at the same time to different purchasers at different prices. Almost every word of this definition requires being qualified. First, selling to different purchasers. We have to include buying from multiple sources of supply, since there is price discrimination in buying as well as in selling, and leasing and hiring. Second, commodity. This should include both services and goods, productive factors as well as products. Third, at the same time. This means under given conditions. The transactions certainly need to be simultaneous. Indeed, there is temporal discrimination such as between Sunday rates and weekday rates, matinee and evening prices, peak rates and off-peak rates, season and off-season prices. Fourth, homogeneous. The commodities need not be homogeneous. I repeat, need not be homogeneous. They may be differentiated in many ways and definitely in numerous types of price discrimination. Differentiation is the fundamental nature. Fifth, different prices to sell different qualities or products with different marginal cost at the identical price, or to buy different qualities or factors of different efficiency at the same price is also discriminatory. And despite the fact that there may be price discrimination without price differences, there may be differential pricing that is not discriminatory. Sixth, firm. We may have to take a cluster of firms, perhaps an entire industry, into account to establish the existence of price discrimination. For example, a single firm may participate in a discriminatory scheme by serving different consumer groups through different subsidiary distributor firms to whom it sells at a uniform price but whom it induces to resell with different markups, or several railroads may lay down combined through rates which are discriminatory in contrast with other rates charged by the same or other lines. To simplify, we define price discrimination as the practice of charging different prices to different consumers for similar goods. Thus, price discrimination exists when the same product is sold at different prices to different buyers. The vital point to observe is that cost of production is either the same or it differs, but not as much as the differences in charges prices. The product is basically the same, but it may have slight variation. Examples include seats of an airplane that are booked at different time periods, summers and winter bookings of rooms of a hotel based in a hill station. We can understand this mechanism by observing the figure given below. Let us suppose that a firm sells all its output at a single price PA and the quantity supplied by it at this price is QA. If we observe the demand curve of this firm, there are two sections, one above PA namely MA and one below PA namely AD. In the section of MA on the demand curve, some consumers are there who are willing to pay a price P1 which is above PA. Also, some consumers are keen to pay price P2 which is less than PA. This shows that if the firm increases its price above a certain desired price, then also consumers are enthusiastic to buy, and if it lowers its price, then also more consumers are willing to purchase. By choosing these different price levels, a firm can discriminate between different consumers and maximize its profits. Moving further, let us study about the assumptions for price discrimination. Price discrimination can only transpire if certain circumstances are met. First, the firm must be able to recognize different market segments such as household users and industrial users. Second, different segments must have different price elasticities. Third, markets must be kept isolated from each other either by time, physical distance and nature of use, such as Microsoft Office Schools version which is only available to educational institutions at a lower price. Fourth, there must be no seepage between the two markets, which means that a consumer cannot purchase at the low price in the elastic sub-market and then resell to other consumers in the inelastic sub-market at a higher price. Fifth, the firm be required to have some extent of monopoly power. Let us discuss the forms of price discrimination. First degree. This category of discrimination, also known as perfect price discrimination, fundamentally states that the company charges the consumer the maximum price that individual is willing to pay for that product. This extracts the entire consumer surplus and earns the firms the highest possible profits. This method of discrimination is also one of the most complicated to adopt because it requires the company knows each of its customers perfectly at each level of consumption. This can best be seen in car dealers where the price on the car is negotiable and the dealer's job is to get the most out of the consumer as possible. The consumer surplus will be zero. In some cultures, price negotiation for goods and services, that is, first degree price discrimination is the norm. First degree discrimination is much less established and consumers are more used to prices which are not negotiable. The aim of first degree price discrimination is for the firm to appropriate the entire consumer surplus. The firm is able to charge the highest possible price for each of the unit, which enables the firm to capture all available consumer surplus for itself. In practice, first degree discrimination is rare. Examples of first degree price discriminators: mechanics of car dealerships, doctors and lawyers, service-based business. Next, second degree. In this type of discrimination, the companies are essentially not able to differentiate between the different categories of consumers. This practice generates a schedule of declining prices for different quantities. Using this strategy, the company can extract some of the consumer surplus without knowing much about the individual consumer. The consumer chooses the quantity of product they wish to consume with the posted prices, and this allows consumers to differentiate themselves according to preference. This category of discrimination can effortlessly be seen in the bulk purchases of large consumers like Walmart, who in turn outdo the savings onto the eventual consumer. This can also be observed in quantity discounts. The more you procure, the more you save. A family pack of soap powder or bulk packaged biscuit tends to cost less per kg than smaller packs. Also, a hair shampoo in a bottle costs less compared to individual shampoo sachets. This naturally discriminates against people living alone, often old age pensioners, bachelors and students. In some supermarkets, the price per kg of product is listed, which helps the customer by providing information on which to base decisions on. Examples of second degree price discriminators category include electric utilities, cable companies, producers of commodities that are made available in bulk and regular packaging. Next, third degree. This category of price discrimination is based around the idea that a firm sets prices that will accommodate the consumer. The firm is acquainted with broad demographics about the particular category of consumers they will supply and charge prices in such a way that everyone will be able to consume the product. In order for this form of discrimination to work, the firm must be capable to predict the elasticity of demand in various consumers. This category of discrimination can be profoundly observed in the movie theatre business. Student and senior citizen discounts are provided because these group of consumers have more elastic price elasticity of demand. It is for the reason that of this discrimination that the firm is able to procure the consumer surplus of those who might not otherwise pay the regular rate. Third degree price discrimination is based on the fact that firm is being able to separate the segments. If separation of segments is not possible, then the product can be transferred. The case discussed below shows the total market for public transport journeys before 9 am. The total market demand DM is the sum of the demand of two segments, that is working professional adults DA and students DS. For adults, the price of a bus ticket is merely a small part of their income, and this implies that their demand DA is more inelastic than that of students for whom a bus ticket is a larger proportion of their income. See the determinants of elasticity. In figure 5.5, the firm we once again decide on their output by equating MC with MR. However, there is not just one price. By drawing a horizontal line through the MC is equal to MR point until it intersects with the MR curves for adults and students, and then reading the price through the respective demand curves DA and DR. The price in each segment is determined, PA and PR. Not surprisingly, the price in the adult market is higher. This discrimination allows the firm to extract more but not all of the consumer surplus. Firms can often strategically segment the market by charging dissimilar amounts for providing the same product or service at different times. For example, Wednesday offers on movie tickets. The firm can also modify the basic product in some way. For example, offering faster check-in for flights or different seats in the same flight, slightly more legroom and complimentary drinks. These firms can also strategically segment markets based on location, selling in different places at different prices. Car sales are an example of this. Car prices tend to be different in different countries, and these differences in prices cannot always be explained away. Example of third degree price discriminators include Harvard Business Review student pricing, movie theaters students and senior discounts, hotels senior discounts. Moving on to the graphical method for price discrimination. If we presume marginal cost MC is constant across all markets, whether or not the market is divided, it will equal average total cost ATC. Profit maximization will occur at the price and output when MC is equal to MR. If the market can be segmented, the price and output in the relatively inelastic sub-market will be P and Q and P1 and Q1 in the relatively elastic sub-market. When the markets are separated, profits will be in the area MC P X Y plus MC1 P1 X1 Y1. If the market cannot be separated and the two sub-markets are collated, profits will be the area MC2 P2 X2 Y2. If the profit from dividing the sub-market is greater than for combining the sub-markets, then the rational profit maximizing monopolist will price discriminate. Let us now learn about the market separation and elasticity. Discrimination is only worth undertaking if the profit for separating the markets is greater than from keeping the markets combined, and this will base upon the relative elasticities of demand in the sub-markets. Consumers in the relatively inelastic sub-market will be charged the higher price and those in the relatively elastic sub-market will be charged the lower price. In the above case, we are assuming that the price at which consumers in the relatively elastic sub-market, students for example looking to travel into a major city, are geared up to enter the market is lower than those in the relatively inelastic sub-market, computers for example. This gives the combined demand AR curve on outward king and the combined MR curve a discontinuous portion indicated by the vertical dotted line. If however both categories of consumer are ready to enter the market at the higher price, then the combined demand AR curve is purely shifted further to the right and will not have the kink. In all cases, it should be evident that profit maximization must occur when MC is equal to MR. This means that profit maximizing equilibrium for the discriminating monopolist must occur where MR is positive, which means that irrespective of the gradient of the demand curves in the sub-market, the price will always be set in the elastic portion of the demand curve individually and when combined. Let us now recapitulate what we have learned so far. Firms normally segment customers based on price sensitivity, elasticity in an array to price discriminate and increase profits. When the firm is a monopolist with market power, the underlying theory of price discrimination is well understood. The firm must be able to identify dissimilar market segments such as household users and industrial users. Different categories of consumers must have different price elasticities. Markets must be kept isolated either by time, physical distance and nature of use, such as Microsoft Office Schools edition, which is only accessible to educational institutions at a lower price. There must be no seepage between the two markets, which means that a consumer cannot purchase at the low price in the elastic sub-market and then resell to other consumers in the inelastic sub-market at a higher price. The firm must have some level of monopoly power. First degree price discrimination, also known as perfect price discrimination, occurs when a firm charges a different price for every unit consumed. Second degree price discrimination means charging a different price for different quantities, such as quantity discounts for bulk purchases against regular packets. Third degree price discrimination means charging a different price to different consumer groups. Consumers in the comparatively inelastic sub-market will be charged the higher price and those in the comparatively elastic sub-market will be charged the lower price. Thank you.